Okay, good morning, Year 6. It's Wednesday, the 13th of January, and it is Wednesday already, so we're in the middle of the week. And today we're going to be using language and sentence variety to show how a setting changes. So today you need to make sure you have the language you generated yesterday to refer to. And in today's task, we're going to ask you to write 2 contrasting descriptions of the beach based on the language that you generated yesterday. Think about how the weather changes the beach from calm, sunny and peaceful to stormy, wild and frightening. Now, you can choose whether you write in first or third person. So just a reminder, we've got that lovely beach when it's very calm, cloudless sky, although in this picture there are clouds. That beautiful blue sea and the waves just lapping against the shore. So it's a really idyllic picture. And then if you remember, by the end of that extract, the sea has become very fierce, the sky is very dark, there are clouds rolling in, it's thundery, and it's actually quite a dangerous, frightening place to be. This is how we're going to organise our writing. So we're going to write 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 will describe the calm, sunny beach. Paragraph 2 will describe the slight changes which start to happen. And in paragraph 3, we're going to be describing the beach with the storm in full flow. Now, we're going to discuss an example which is written by a child in Year 6 last year. And whilst I'm reading it out, I want you to think, what do you think they did well in terms of sentence structure and language choices? So imagine that we're reading it in class together. What would you be thinking this child had done well? Now, there is a copy on the website if you want to look at it in more detail, or you can pause the video. Paragraph 1. So this is the paragraph when we're describing the calm beach. The gentle breeze wove in and out of my hair, whilst the silent sand tickled my toes. Silently, the tranquil blue sea reflected the golden sun, making it sparkle magically as it hushed towards me. Gulls soared soundlessly above me in the clear, cloudless sky, and behind me, the stony cliff faces peered over me, watching me collect my precious shells in the shimmering haze of Boat Cove. It was perfect. Paragraph 2. So there's a change beginning to take place. I carried on searching, 30 shells to go. As the minutes ticked past, the frothy waves started to rise, slowly at first. The sun started to get lower and its golden rays started to lose heat. Suddenly, I noticed everything was changing. Clouds swarmed over me, the azure sky had turned darker and a biting wind was blowing. The sea was marching towards me and I was already trapped. And paragraph 3, when we're describing how fierce the beach and sea has become within minutes. So you can see we've only given you the opening to that paragraph. So what did you notice? Remember, we're thinking about sentence structure and the language that has been used. You might want to pause the video and jot down a few ideas or discuss it with somebody near you. Okay, so let's have a look at paragraph 1 together. So you can see in this paragraph, I've underlined some of the sentences or some of the parts of a sentence, some of the language, and we're going to talk about why I might have done. Maybe it's the same things that you have picked up on. So that first part, whilst the soft sand tickled my toes. So I particularly like that choice of language. I like the alliteration, so that repeated sound, soft sand tickled my toes, because it makes me think of how gentle the sand is. And it's also, this person has used personification. So they're trying to make the sand, which is an inanimate object, it's an object which isn't alive, they've tried to make it into a person. So talking about the sand having human characteristics, so it's tickling their toes. Then we go on to silently the tranquil blue sea. So I've highlighted that adjective tranquil. And the reason I've highlighted that is because I think it's a really effective word choice, because tranquil means very peaceful, very calm, and nothing disturbing it. So that gives the reader a clue just how calm and quiet and beautiful a day it is at this beach. Moving down a little bit, we've got gulls soared soundlessly. Now, we know from the text that the birds aren't making any noise, and I really like this choice of soared soundlessly, so that alliteration again, that same sound, that soft sound, and the idea of them flying up into the sky and wheeling around, but not making a sound. So that contributes to this peaceful, tranquil day. And moving on again, so behind me, the stony cliff faces peered over me. Again, the writer has used personification. So they are making the cliff seem like they've got human characteristics. So those big, tall, high cliffs are peering over Cherry, watching her. And then the last couple of parts that I've highlighted, the precious shells, again, that use of precious, that use of that adjective to describe the shells shows us how important they are to Cherry. And finally, this last sentence, it was perfect. It's a short sentence, but it's very effective. It sums it all up. This is the most idyllic day, the most perfect beach, and it's just being a short sentence. There's no arguing about it. Okay, let's move on and see what you noticed in the second paragraph and see whether it's similar or different to what I noticed. It's worth saying that I've just highlighted some of it. There are lots of other parts that you could have highlighted, and as long as you can explain why you've highlighted them, as you know, that is what counts. So here, I've highlighted an entire sentence, because remember, as well as language, we're looking at sentence types. So I've highlighted, I carried on searching, 30 shells to go. Now, this is a very effective multi-clause sentence, because we've got this, I carried on searching. Now, that is a complete sentence on its own, and we know that Cherry is searching. But the person who wrote this has now decided to add on an extra piece of information, 30 shells to go. Now, we know that when her parents left, Cherry had 150, or that was her estimate. She had 150 left to find. But now she's found a few more, and she's just got 30 shells to go. And you get that feeling of her really wanting to just get those 30 shells. So I really like the way that that has been added on the end of that main clause, that main sentence. Next, moving on, we've got this adjective here to describe the waves. So the waves are frothy. Now, I think that's a really clever use of an adjective, because in the first paragraph, it's very calm, the waves are lapping. And remember, paragraph 2 is about that slight change starting to happen. So we've got the frothy waves, they're just starting, so the sea's just starting to get a little bit churned up, a little bit rougher, and it just gives the reader a little clue about what possibly is coming up. And then moving on through the paragraph, we've got this use of a colon. So remember, a colon comes after a complete sentence. So suddenly I noticed everything was changing. So that's very straightforward, isn't it? We know that the beach and the sea is changing. However, the colon then introduces a list of 3. Clouds swarmed over me, the azure sky had turned darker, and a biting wind was blowing. So those 3 changes really help the reader recognise that something is happening, that it's starting to become a dangerous place. Those swarming clouds covering Cherry, the sky turning darker, and that biting wind starting blowing. And finally, the sea was marching towards me, and I was already trapped. So the writer has used personification again. So they've turned the sea into something with human characteristics. The sea is marching towards me. It's like it's trying to take Cherry prisoner. And we know that it does end up trapping her on the beach. And actually, if you can see on this picture, this little part of the beach here that I'm circling with the cursor, that shows you how the sea can be coming in and she can still be on the beach but trapped, because actually that part of the beach would be very difficult to escape from because the cliffs are very high and this water is now coming in and is quite deep and is starting to get quite churned up. And finally, in paragraph 3, within minutes, and we're going to allow you in paragraph 3 to create your own description of what you think is happening without any guidance. So that's your challenge. So hopefully that example has given you some ideas about how to use language and sentence structure effectively in your writing and how to introduce the changes that happen in voc code. And I'm sure, like you always do, you will have lots of ideas of your own. Remember, we have asked you to pay special attention to the language choices you use and the variety of sentence structures within your writing. So you might want to use some of these sentence starters to help you in paragraph 1. Remember, paragraph 1 is describing that beautiful, calm scene when Cherry is first on the beach. The soft breeze above me, as I looked around, I saw in the sky, the gulls were, the waves were, as I walked along the sands. Sorry, as I walked along the sand, it was. So you can use some of those. You can use all of them. You can use none of them. It's completely up to you. They're just there if you need a little bit of help getting started. And the same for paragraph 2. We've got, as the minutes tick past, the sun, out to sea, above the beach, the clouds, the wind began to, the waves started to, I felt. Now, these will be saved on the website. For paragraph 3, there are no sentence starters, so have a go at creating it all by yourself. Pause the video so you have time to write your contrasting paragraphs. Remember, paragraph 1 is the calm beach, paragraph 2 shows that change starting to take place, and paragraph 3 shows that violent storm and the sea crashing in and it becoming quite a dangerous place. So, the last step. Now, when you have finished your paragraphs, have a break. That's really important because you've been working hard, you've been thinking about all that language and sentence structures, and your brain just needs to relax for a little bit, maybe have a drink, go outside, have some fresh air. Then come back and read through your work with fresh eyes. So think about these questions. Number 1, have you used the best language, not the first word which came into your head? And remember, we talk about that a lot in class, don't we? So really thinking about the best word for the job. Think about the punctuation you've used. Is it accurate and varied? Now, we're talking about basic punctuation there as well. So capital letters at the beginning of sentences, full stops at the end, capital letters if you've used any proper nouns, but then also that bigger range of punctuation. So have you used a colon to introduce a list of 3? Have you used commas after fronted adverbials? So all those things that we talk about in class. And finally, question 3, have you used a range of sentence types, different sentence types? Have you got a short sentence? Have you got a sentence with a fronted adverbial? Have you got a sentence where there's a colon introducing a list of 3? And remember, we're not just asking you to do these as a tick list. You should be really thinking about what they add to the writing. So when you're thinking about using a colon to add a list, what does it add to the writing? Remember, you're making these choices as a writer. And as we've said a lot of times, we love it when you share your writing with us, and it's been great to see some of your writing from last week. So do please email your compositions and tell us what you're proud of. Tell us something that you think you've worked really hard on. Come back tomorrow to discover what happens to Cherry. And it would really help if you have your brainstorms from Monday to refer to as well in Thursday's lesson. And that's the end of today's lesson. So see you tomorrow.